All right. Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Guy Atchison's Reinventing the Tattoo community. Um, today, uh, this is a this is a very special episode of Drawing for Tattooers. We're going to talk about color theory, and it's a subject that I think it can be really complicated. So we're going to try to, simplify it, break things down. Um, so I'm going to read my morning announcements. But if you are hearing me, right, you can let me know in the chat. I'm going to check it out real quick. See if we're on YouTube. Maybe. It looks like we might be. So thanks for bearing with me, everybody. Yeah, cool. So we're live on the internet. Again, welcome and good morning. This is Guy Atchison's Reinventing the Tattoo community, where tattooers, collectors, apprentices, and curious are all encouraged to tune into these live uh, and recorded events. Our goal is to share, inspire, um, ultimately create better art and tattoos together. We beam out nearly every single day, and with your help, we've become a quality network of live and on-demand, art and educational content. So you can learn more here. Let me see if I could share my screen with y'all. It's coming. There. Too many screens open. We'll get it right here. Cool. All right. Yeah. You can learn more at reinventingthetattoo.com. And so I'll scroll through and show you the home page. At reinventingthetattoo.com, you can find courses in tattoo design, as well as a community of other like-minded tattooers, where you can be sure to get like a lot of support, and um, it's a lot of fun too. As I'm scrolling through, we're kind of checking out and seeing like the other programming that we have available, right? Drawing for Tattooers, that's this show. It's on Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern. That's followed by the Tattoo Weekly at 11 a.m. Eastern. And then at 9 p.m., we have the subscribers exclusive drawing group. At 5 p.m. on Mondays, we also have Let's Talk About Feelings, Robbie Ripple. On Thursdays, we'll scroll down here to our events calendar. Right. On Thursdays, at 6 p.m. Eastern, we have the Tattoo Collectors 101 podcast hosted by Fawn Baker. On Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, we have the Sunday Skill Building Drawing Group with Jason Leeser. So you can learn more about us here at reinventingthetattoo.com. But now I'd like to take a moment and check out some of our sponsors. Tattoo Now. TattooNow.com is technology for tattooers, the leading edge of professional development management and digital tools for tattoo artists. Be sure to check out Tattoo Now. You can learn more about all of the great products and offerings that can help you take your communication to the next level. And then, of course, I'd like to again thank Guy Atchison for being the founder and inspiration behind Reinventing the Tattoo. You can learn more about Guy Atchison at guyatchison.com, where you can find a gallery of artwork and tattoos, as well as other educational content, DVDs, books, the biomech encyclopedia, as well as equipment, tattoo machines, and just updates on all things Guy Etchison. So check out guyetchison.com. Right, and I think that's probably pretty good. So let me stop my share. I'll say good morning to Stephen. Hey, Stephen.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
So I was just like walking through the morning announcements, but I started off talking about how we're going to be focusing on color theory today. I know this was something that you and I were talking about last week and weeks previous. So yeah, I think this would be a really great conversation for us to have together. Because I think that's the thing about it. It's like there's so much to color theory, and so I'm always trying to learn more about it. But I definitely like to you know keep it simple and try to make it as approachable as possible, especially for myself. As I'm trying to figure out what's going to be the color scheme. Um, so right, I wanted to um, I wanted to talk today about the color wheel, and I recently purchased Russ Abbott's color wheel from Tattoo Smart. It's very cool. I don't know if you've ever seen it or if you have it, Stephen. Um,
Yeah, I do have it. I use it more and more, I feel like. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I have a hard time trusting it because it just it gives you some pretty cool color ideas. But um it's a great tool. I feel like anytime I've used it, I haven't regretted it. I like the value chart on it a lot as well because I was talking last week about using color as value, and it really, brings it down to a Neanderthal level I can understand. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I think it doesn't, I feel like it doesn't matter like where you're at in you know what I mean? Like as far as your understanding, your learning about, a subject, having a tool, right? A reference is a good idea, right? And so I think that,
Sure.
yeah, I think that, you know, this is a I think a really worth it purchase. So I definitely I'm like promoting it. Um, yeah, so right, so this is a few things that I want to talk about it. Uh, Really, I think this might be sort of fun. Let me quickly sort of promote reinventing in the show a little bit more. So, right. So, Hell City, 2023. Um, Reinventing is going to be live at Hell City. So if you're going to Hell City, we'd love to see you there. So we've got a whole lineup of seminars. Um, and so I really encourage you to check it out. But of course, want to promote Drawing for Tattooers is going to be live at Hell City. So we're going to be there May 20th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. So we're going to be doing drawing exercises, meeting with each other. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I just wanted to promote it and invite everybody to come. Right. So Hell City, it's going to be amazing, and the show is going to be there. So there's so much. There's a whole weekend of content. So definitely, come to Hell City. You're gonna enjoy it very much. So Um, right. Next, because we're talking about Russ Abbott, I figured I would share his Instagram page. Let me see. Cool. So here's Russ's Instagram page. Um, he's talking a lot of, he has a lot of content he makes. He's also got the Launchpad group, very cool. Tattoo Smart. So if you use iPad, if you use digital stuff, Tattoo Smart is a really great resource. Let's say hey to Amber. Amber, good morning.
Good morning.
I uh, I saw on the internet that you weren't feeling well. So how are you doing?
I am definitely on the mend. I am doing a hell of a lot better than I was at the beginning of last week.
God. Well, thanks for coming. I mean, I hope you're I hope you get well soon. Are you
Thank you. I'm on the mend.
are you at home right now?
No, I'm still in the hospital.
Oh no. Oh man. Well, um yeah, no, it means a lot that you were able to make it, and I hope you really, get well soon. So so thanks for coming.
Thank you for
Um
having me.
yeah,
It's
of course.
much better than sitting here staring at the walls.
Well, you're always welcome. Well, we were just talking about we're talking about color theory, and we're talking about Russ Abbott, and so he's a tattooer and an educator, and also content maker and app builder. So lecturer, he does a lot of stuff, and but here we can check out a tattoo. Wow, so cool. Um, yeah, beautiful, beautiful work.
I
Let's see
love
here.
those muted sepia tones behind that bright blue.
I think that's a great point. That really what we've not everything is the same intensity, right?
Mm,
Like there's definitely some difference. Let's zoom in a little bit, right? The blue is very intense, but this color I would call it a muted orange or like a neutralized orange color, right? It really does it really does play off of the blue very nicely. Um, so they contrast, right? There's a bit of
mm.
contrast.
It's cool and
Um,
even though the warm is so muted, it's still cool and warm as well.
exactly, exactly. There's all kinds of ways that we could start to talk about the contrast in this piece. Um, and so there's a lot of really smart choices in it. And so it's a good example of sort of these ideas that we're going to talk about today with color theory. Let's check out another one. Yeah. So again, I think
So crisp.
there's it is it's like it's super well done. But in this one, there's this sort of relationship to the gray. The gray seems to be the frame, and then all of these really intense colors are. It's almost like a stained glass sort of mandala thing,
Mm,
tough to nail it down, um, uh, but again, there's a nice contrast, right? There's flesh that's being left exposed, at least at this stage, and then all of the filigree work has gray tones, and it's sort of a neutral quality to it, to the gray, as well as like all of the really intense color here. So we've got this contrast, difference of shapes, different scales of things, right? Different sizes and stuff. Um, but there's a sort of symmetry to it. Call it rotational symmetry. Everything, is uh, there's a symmetrical quality to it, and it's in the center of the body, so I think it works out fairly well. There's a symmetry, bilateral symmetry to the frame itself as well. So yeah, again, it's just a very, fascinating design, and it flatters the body in a really interesting way. But the color theory too, that's kind of our focus. That's really what we're talking about today. Let me see. We're getting new guests all the time. Yeah, just a really beautiful piece. See, there's a few more. Hey, good morning, Kyle.
Morning, sir. Sorry to show up a little late. Slept in a little bit.
No problemo. Well, we're just talking about color theory, and we're checking out a few tattoos, Russ Abbott tattoos today, because we're going to be taking a look at his color wheel from Tattoo Smart.
Okay, right on.
That's gnarly.
Oh yeah.
Throat. Yeah. That is it's tattooing throats is difficult, I find. That's what I think. I think tattooing a throat it comes with all sorts of challenges, So you have an added degree of appreciation and respect, when you see something that's really so crisp and solid. It's super solid. And for the sitter too, and for the person sitting for that. I think it's also like, quite an accomplishment. But yeah, as we're looking at it, at this piece, what I'm seeing, there's a definite sort of green is the theme, right? That seems to be the most prominent sort of, it really stands out, right? There's a lot of green is forward in this. That's the impression I'm getting of it. Where the red is complementary, it really sort of, it makes the green like more green. And then even this yellow, it's slightly more intense, but ochre sort of yellow, sort of neutral. But then this more neutralized, darker yellow down here, it almost sort of, it's there's a temperature difference, but it almost sort of is evocative of a green, almost like it's close. It's becoming close to an olive green almost, right? It's still a little warm for that, but there's this interesting sort of mix there, and I think we can talk about this strategy a little bit more later, and when we start checking out the color wheel, but certainly like difference in the value of the color. I think it's really like describes very well for us like what that idea would be, is that we've got a very light green versus a much darker green. So they're greens, right? But they have a different value, right? They have a different darkness and lightness. Same thing for this yellow in the back, right? It certainly has like a value shift, this gradient from much lighter color to a much darker one. So yeah, and just a nice perspective going on, as well as like uh, just sort of masterfully shaded, right? Just all of the facets, they work really well, and they give us this sense of dimension, like we can sort of see through this frame. And then again, this sort of strategy, like a very neutral sort of edge with this. Well, I mean, it's a colorful gray, like a black and white gray mix, right? Rather than just a gray wash. And then you're, juxtaposed against this very, very solid color. Very, there's a lot more intensity to the colors here. So I think it even more like gives us more contrast, right? Adds contrast to the equation. Very cool piece. Yeah, let's check out a few more since we're here. I like this one. I think that's kind of neat. Yeah, what do you all think?
Damn. That
I
looks
like
intense.
monochromatic. It's two monochromatic pieces. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like this is a very impressive tattoo, but if you break it down, I feel like he killed the black and gray and then really simplified his color work on this.
Mm.
I'm not necessarily speaking about that whale. I'm talking about the ship and
Hmm.
the front. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
What were you going to say, Kyle?
Oh, it just impressive. It's really, really cool. I like it. Um, yeah, just like, I don't know, is it more of like the whale, more of just like the overall focal point, you think? I think so, yeah. I don't know.
Well, I'm kind of like, tattoos are so interesting because it's like, really, we have all these visual planes of the body, right? So, like when you're looking at like, the front of the arm, you can't see the inside of it at the same time,
Mhm.
right? When
Mhm.
you're, same thing with the leg, right? You can see the front of the leg, side of the leg, right? You can't see the inside of the leg at the same, you can't see it's opposite at the same time.
Yeah.
So as I'm looking at this piece, it looks like there's a certain point where I can kind of see, a little bit of this one and a little bit of that one, but mainly it's like when I can really see this whale, it's kind of to itself. So it's almost like a composition unto itself. And then as I would sort of either the body would turn or I would sort of, you know, I would come to see it. Um, More of this, like Stephen was saying, the monochromatic ship would sort of be there. When we're seeing it laid out like this, everything kind of like dissected and you know, um, reconfigured to make one image for us.
Mhm.
Um, I think there's a difference in sort of stylistic approaches. And so it's interesting. It's like, you never know. Maybe one was done first and the other was, one half was done at one time or whatever. Or maybe the whole thing was designed this way. But certainly it feels like if we were seeing this in person, like we would only really be able to see kind of one of them at a time, and then the other one would be more, one side with the ship would become prominent as far as our vision, and then as we move around, we would see the other side, something like that. Um, I mean, it's interesting. I think it's an interesting point you bring up, Kyle, about like which, like is that the focal point? Which one is it?
Mhm.
Um, and I think it can be both because it will be relative to,
Mhm.
how you're seeing it.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes total sense.
I think it's sort of like these are all things we know intuitively, and it's like I have to think about it when it's hard to think about it when we're designing it because we're thinking two-dimensionally, right? We're designing it and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and that's why, that's where I really feel like, I think you were showing us like you were designing your sleeves in 3 dimensions, weren't you, Kyle? You were showing us that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that tool is so freaking helpful.
and that's why, yeah, I think that's like that would help like sort of remind you of the importance of those different visual planes and how you would, like how you can maximize that.
Mhm.
Um, so
Yeah,
yeah, I like that.
really helps out the flow, because you got like,
Absolutely.
you got the filigree that has the flow and everything like that, but then like it also seems like you have kind of this flow of the water going up to the well, and then like the well kind of has that curve and it adds that implied line to point towards the ship. So like the viewer's eye is just kind of doing this like whole like S thing, kind of lazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not even color, but yeah, that's cool. I like that. That's really, really cool.
Hmm.
I like how he did like the on the left hand side of the well, kind of behind the dude. Um, you got the bright saturated blue, and then behind that it goes kind of like a purplish gray, and then it does a little bit of a red to help slowly fade into the background. That was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, this color is very interesting, isn't it? It's you know, as I zoom in on a little bit more, it's really it would be, I'm just imagining what it would be like in the, in the cap. I mean, so some of it's
Yeah.
probably mixed in the skin, right? But like you just got this mud color in the cap.
Yeah.
It's that's what's really, I think, such a fun, exploration when you're painting something, or you're tattooing, if you can sort of I have the have the guts, right, to do it, to put in this really neutral thing. It can end up looking quite masterful, right? Like, but at the same time, it could, as you're developing it, I think it could be a moment where you might like have a bit of anxiety with it. But I think I can see, certainly like there's it's almost like there's some of that same stuff in the whale, maybe. It's possible. It's like there's some neutral stuff going on here. There's a real clear, like, sort of positive negative relationship. Right? This is something that that the guy talks about a lot. So we see the edge of the lower part of the whale here next to the next to the sky color, the blood red sky. And it is just a very clear silhouette. The figure too, I think it's kind of a, there's definitely these moments like where the boot and stuff like that, it's just so crisp against the darkness of the sky itself. It really really gives us that clear positive negative relationship.
Well, yeah.
Oh, this one. Go ahead. Sorry, I jumped to another one.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, in like the whole, like, how the whale's like pretty super desaturated and the background's like super saturated. It really, 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 really helps out positive and negative stuff.
Excellent point. No, I think that's really well observed. What do you think about this one?
Looks like a lot of fun.
Right.
Yeah, super desaturated skull, and then like the background, like you got the super bright oranges and then like the yellowies, like the bluish grays for the scully. Right.
And so we kind of seeing a different strategy here, right? Where it's like, instead of the, like a lot of the pieces we're seeing is sort of like, there's this sort of there's that gray frame, right? And then there's really colorful inside. In this one, it's like, the intense color is really like on the outside, right? Where the main sort of focal point is again, like you were saying, Kyle, it's desaturated, has a bit of, a neutral sort of character to it. It's interesting. Yeah. And I think I think there's a lot of, certainly a lot that, a lot that you could put right into your tattoo work, right away. There's a lot of things that you could sort of start to adopt right away.
Yeah.
You got the cool in the foreground on the bottom, and then it's in the background at the top. So the warm and cool are opposite, top and bottom of this piece. That's pretty interesting approach. I've seen some does you guys know who 80 Poncho is? I might be saying that wrong. 80 Poncho?
Yeah,
that dude does some crazy stuff like that too.
Yeah, he does, dude. His stuff is bananas. I think it's kind of cool how they have, like, how he has the orange, like it's pretty reserved and it's concentrated on the bottom part. Like none of the orange and the yellow is competing at all. I think it's kind of cool to where he just stops the orange, and then like the top part, the top half, like the yellow is the one that's the saturated part. And
he made it look so smooth.
That too. And what, again, I think an interesting thing, is you were pointing it out, Kyle, for sure, is like, there's like the warm in the background and the cool is more foreground. but it works in this case, right? I think a lot of times we kind of get that, commonly understood, or we presuppose that like warm is going to come forward and cool is going to push back, and that certainly is true, especially like if you're looking at like a like a landscape or something. You get a bit of atmospheric perspective, and things could become more bluish tinge and they become cooler. But in this particular case, it's really interesting, like that reversal of our expectations. And the blue is certainly forward, and the orange is behind. So it's kind of it's kind of a role reversal, of color temperature. So it's again, it's just another interesting note, and just sort of I think just helping us understand this relativity of color. Color is it's what is what it's related to. It's really going to give it its power and its impact. And also, something I feel like we were, if you were reading your reinventing, curriculum this week, or at least in the in the last week or two, we're talking about like the difference between tattooed skin and untattooed skin, and how that kind of reflects light, and just a difference. Just a difference in it. We can even see that in this picture, right? We can sort of tell where there's a little bit of untattooed skin that's left, and it has a different sort of character. To even some areas that have very neutral stuff, that's gonna, it's gonna be very light. When it's healed and stuff, it's still gonna have a subtle sort of different, characteristic. So it'll catch the light a little bit differently. I mean, kind of, there's a beautiful subtlety to it, I think. This is so I think this is like, this is important, you know what I mean? Like, check out the work that you love, you know what I mean, and analyze it, and this way you start to have a insight into your own work. I feel like that's ultimately what it's not for comparison. It's it's for it's appreciation, and there's like learning and stuff. But again, I think it's sort of like you can think about how you might apply some of these ideas to the things that you're into, the things that you're gonna want to do. Easier said than done, probably, right? I think it's easy to get into, like, comparing, and just getting the wrong sort of idea about stuff. You know what I mean? You want to compare your newest work to your latest, to your older work, right? You compare yourself to yourself. That's who you're really in competition with, is how are you progressing? How are you getting better? And then we can be inspired by others, and learn from them, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Compete
Easier said than done.
Then just like appreciate others,
Yeah.
I get a lot of inspiration from others.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Even if it's just some tiny corner with a little color combination in it. And then my composition has absolutely nothing to do with their composition. But like this is Fawn's back, I believe.
Yes.
Oh, really?
And I love this color combination of that teal and that salmony orange. I want to use that somewhere. I just haven't been able to figure out where yet.
I'm sure something will come up for sure.
Oh yeah, it'll hit me all of a sudden. I'll be like, that's what that's for.
Light bulb.
Yeah, it's a really cool back piece. You know what I mean? Just, it's very flattering, and then as a shape, and then of course we've been talking today about like different ideas with color theory, and so even though there's just this, it's very I mean, it's like, it's deceivingly simple. I want to say it's simple, but it's like, it's elegant, right? There's a real elegance to how everything's related. And so, but there's still plenty of contrast, right? I feel like it's clear to see like what's happening, and there's another image from the side. Yeah,
It's nice to see it at a different angle since it's so symmetrical.
Mm.
It's really, like you said, it's symmetrical, but it's really quite dynamic at the same time. I'm kind of, I think like I want to like agree with what you're saying, Stephen. Like I think seeing it from this different angle gives us these dynamic sort of figure eight, right? It feels like that comes out more strongly as in the composition. These diagonal lines that sort of cut across. It's very,
Yeah, it's feminine. So definitely outward and then shape. It's a nice piece.
Yeah, so simple, warm and cool sort of thing going on. That that contrast, but then also there's sort of gradients that are happening in the red all the way to some it's very dark. It looks like might be black, might be some true black or something in some of these areas. Right, all the way up to sort of neutralized kind of like a red violet. That's sort of tending towards that side of things. But then the blue is very very solid, very saturated blue, is very even, right? All the blue is the same blue, so it's almost it's reminiscent of like sort of looking through something and seeing the sky. It kind of anchors it, makes it it's very very almost like busy with all the with every with everything else, all the facets, and so having that sort of same blue running through it, I feel like kind of anchors it, makes it kind of calms it down in a certain way.
It's also got a light source on there. Like if you look at those triangle shapes, on the right hand side, the top facing plane is dark, and on the left, he's got that highlight there. Same thing, except opposite on the bottom. The bottom side would be dark on the triangles on her, like her kidney area.
Yes. It's very logical, right? So it makes sense. We can read it as I think that would be intuitive, right? As because you described it very well as far as like identifying where the shadows are, but you wouldn't, you know what I mean? You wouldn't have to understand that to read it that way, because it's just so it's indicative of shadow pattern, light, single strong light source that like that's most everybody, I feel like would be able to sort of recognize that and say, it's dimensional. You know what I mean? Like it looks like that. It looks like this piece is sticking out off of the surface. Those sorts of that sort of thing, and they're all related. So it has a sort of continuity, I think, to that that idea. So yeah, just really successful and really interesting. A lot of work.
Yeah,
Tremendous amount of work.
that's a lot of sessions.
Yeah, right. Well, I wonder. I'll have to ask Fawn. How many sessions it took, because there's that's an interesting factoid, but just like it's the proof is in the pudding, right? And like here it is. It's like it looks fantastic, and so it's good results, right? It's sort of like it still must have been very sort of, it was well considered and well sort of approached, just that's the only way you could come up with a result like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wouldn't happen, organically. The design part of it, you know what I mean? Designing it and coming up with what it would be, but then just the application of it. It's so direct and so intentional. These are good, I think, just simply good things for, for us to take away from, from checking this out. So cool. Yeah, awesome. Well, so I wanted to talk a little bit about color theory. I think we've been sort of, hopefully we haven't been speaking over, everybody's heads, the audience, as you're watching. Because again, it's like this show is really about fundamentals. And so as we're kind of refamiliarizing ourselves with it, or even encountering it for the first time, I think there's just a lot of value in, in talking about these things. And so I definitely want to I just appreciate everybody's, like insights into these things. And, you all seem to understand this very well. So hopefully it's not too awful boring, as as we're kind of going over the rudimentary stuff. But again, I really hope that it's something that, you find it, value in as well. So, well, anyway, all right. I want to ask the gang, what is light, right? I know it's maybe you know. Any takers?
What is light?
What is light?
The absence of dark.
I like that. That's a nice definition.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it only kind of answers, but it's the absence of dark. You can't have, light without dark, and vice versa.
Right.
One doesn't exist
without light,
without dark.
we have dark. Right. So again, I think that I love that. I love that that definition. Let me share this image with everybody. So I don't know if hopefully you can see it. Electromagnetic radiation. That's what light is, right? Light is electromagnetic radiation.
That was my next guess.
Right? Let me full screen it. So hopefully not being too distracted by my desktop and stuff. All right. Electromagnetic radiation. So light is that would be I think the negative description of it is there's no dark, thus there's light. So right, light, electromagnetic radiation, what is that? It's a photon, right? There's a little particle, photon, but it's dualistic. It's a photon, it's a particle, it's also a wave. Don't worry about it, right? I think it's like it's moving at the speed of light, right? This photon. And so it's also moving in this wave. And so we can see this illustration of a wavelength. This is very simplified general sort of idea, but it's the notion is that it's this photon is it's moving up and down, and side to side at the same time. It's all over the place, right? But if we could see the sort of the peak of the wave, right, to the peak of the next wave, that's the wavelength. So we all know that term, the wavelength. That's how it would be measured. And so it's the wavelength, right, that gives us these different types of electromagnetic radiation. So of course, let me see if I hopefully that's not in your way. Okay. So of course we have radio signals, in television. If way back when, if you used to have an antenna, if you know what I'm talking about, it used to bring in your television, your TV signal. Next we have microwaves. A lot of people probably have a microwave, in their kitchen. A lot of us are familiar with that, right? A microwave uses electromagnetic radiation or microwaves or light to cause things to get hot, right? It actually sort of vibrates the water molecules in things, and it vibrates so fast that it starts to heat it up. That's how it works. Infrared, which is heat. So the heating in your house, but also your body heat, right? So in this way, bodies are made of light, right? They're emanating light, even though you can't necessarily see it. You're still emanating this electromagnetic radiation, this infrared, right? This heat, right? The sunlight, right? Same thing. Within the sunlight, we get this very narrow spectrum of electromagnetic radiation, which is visible spectrum. And so this is all the visible light that we can see. So here we have this representation, Roy G. Biv, right? Right? You know,
Good morning.
Roy G. Biv, if you're familiar with that. Next, right, ultraviolet. Ultraviolet is just, it's just past our visible spectrum of light. But there are light bulbs that bring it into our vision, like black lights and stuff like that. Pretty interesting, right? X-rays, right? X-rays, they can travel through the surface, right, of your skin, but they bounce off the bones, right? And that gives us this, the ability to see through the flesh and see the bones underneath. And finally, these gamma rays are, it's very small. You see the difference in the wavelength, it's very small. And so it has this, this radiation symbol here, used here. So, essentially, as it's, I believe it's something like this wavelength, it's so the wavelength is so tight, when it can knock out, like it can disturb your atomic structure, right? It'll disturb, it'll knock out like an electron or something like that, and thus, like, making things making things like rogue, right? And that can cause cancer, it can like eliminate cancer, right? It can kill cancer cells. There's all kinds of, this is above what we're talking about. We're talking about the visible spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's light. Just sort of a brief, light. Visible spectrum of electromagnetic radiation, right, is light. Several weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, I forget when, Spirit shared a video here. It showed how, light almost like, it smashes into something and it looks like waves sort of, coming off of it in all directions. Another good way to sort of think about it. But the way we see anything, of course, is how, how these photons of light, are reflected off of a surface, right? And so when we're looking at a painting or a piece of paper, right, something in life, things are bouncing off of those surfaces and then we're receiving them with our eyes, right? So it's reflecting off of things. This is what's referred to as subtractive color theory. We'll talk about that, because certain wavelengths are being subtracted away while others are actually coming forward and meeting you. Okay. The difference would be when we're looking at a screen, let's say, right? Like our computer screens right now, if you're on this call, you're watching us, or you're looking at your tablet, or, or your phone. When you're seeing the light coming from that, it's called additive color theory. Like different wavelengths are being added together, right? So rather than subtracted, rather than wavelengths of light being absorbed by something and then some of it being reflected out, your screen is projecting, is adding different lights together. So, and that's what those the symbols would mean, or the acronym would mean, RGB, red, green, blue, right? It's those wavelengths of color that are being added by your screen to produce the phenomenon that you see, right? Otherwise, we can think about, like, when we think about, like, subtractive color theory, like painting a painting, drawing a drawing, tattooing a tattoo. We start with that idea of red, yellow, and blue as a primary sort of source. Those are the primary colors, we call them. So And then from those three, all the rest myriad colors are made. Again, I think there's people who would argue that's a dated way to think of it. You know, like green should be included as a primary color, or magenta, you know, which is like a red violet color. Certainly printing works that way, right?
Yes.
We know the acronym CMYK, right? Cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, right?
Yeah.
Right, Amber, you talked about this.
Yes, my magenta color wheel.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think you're onto something there. There's something important about it. And so, you know, these are, again, well, you know, we're just thinking about it. We're thinking about color theory. So pretty complicated so far, I know. I really do know that. So here's the things that I think this really helps. It helps me a lot. Again, you know, color theory is always something that you can work on forever. But I think the more that you work on it, the more that you sort of internalize it, talk about it, the more you can sort of let it go. And things can start to happen intuitively. As with all the things that we work on here, I think it's you know, it's not about mastering them. It's about like being able to use them, right? And then eventually let it go. So there's some of it that works
realizing
for
it
you.
becomes a muscle memory.
I think so. I really do. You know, I've heard this analogy before. It's like, you know, like you have to do something, right? Effort is needed, but you know, you use a boat to cross the river, but eventually you get across it, and then you have to leave that boat behind and travel. You know what I mean? You have to keep going forward. So, you know, just sort of, it just occurs to me, it's like this same sort of thing. These tools are, you know, they're very necessary, but again, it might be, there might be a time when you do leave it aside, and you know, and you have to, like, you know, leap into the unknown in certain respects. So, right. So here's the simplified sort of thing that I think, I feel like it helps me a lot, and so I hope it helps you. And that's hue, saturation, and value. I think we've even said it today. I think somebody, Stephen, you may have mentioned it earlier, but hue, saturation, and value. What does that mean? Does anybody want to help me out here? Like, what do we mean by hue? What does that mean?
Hue is the color, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Hue is the color.
Hue would be the color. Just a name for the colors. In, you know, sort of more simply an academic sort of color theory, it's there's really just like 12 names for colors. You know, that's it. Now, like in advertising, there is an unlimited amount of names for colors. You know what I mean? Advertising has furnished for us an unlimited name of colors. Just sort of, it's usually based on the association of a thing with that color. Does that make sense? I use it, you know, as I'm, you know, we're going to see a lot of colors here in a minute, but it's relating like this, you know, hopefully very specific color to something, to a thing. And that's, you know, so you can remember it more. But to abstract them as names of what, you know, just simply colors, right? We're just talking about those, the hues. They'll help us sort of, you know, not get lost in all the names. There's so many. So just sort of simplifying it down to some very bare minimum stuff. Okay. Saturation. What do we mean? What do we mean by saturation exactly? How can we understand this a little bit more?
The intensity is one way to look at it.
Exactly. What do you help us out? Keep going with that. I love it. Intensity.
If like on the classic view on the Procreate, it's like how much gray, like the saturation, like desaturated, you're looking more towards grays, and then saturation, you're looking for like the intensity of that color, like how bright you can make it, I guess, in a sense. Like not like light, like adding white to it, but just like, I don't know, the intensity, like how vibrant, there you go. The most vibrant you can get with the color. So yeah, for like the
Yes.
center out on that thing.
Right.
Game, Kyle.
What's that?
Said Kyle's killing the game.
Yes. Well, so exactly, Kyle. And this is, so here we can see this example of the most intense, the most saturated, just sort of to we're using those terms interchangeably, but the outer this outer ring of our color wheel here, right, is all of the very most saturated, most intense of colors. And this is this is what's meant, right, by the intensity, is that you're getting this, it's close to some sort of idea of, pure red, right, or pure green, all that stuff. Those are the, that's what we mean by it. And so there's a certain, when it becomes less intense, desaturated, it's more neutralized. It's closer to a neutral gray.
Neutral.
The value scale in the middle of this wheel, is as close, it's very close to, to as neutral as we can imagine. And so again, it's kind of funny. I feel like there's, like, you can measure scientifically, there's been this agreement about certain wavelengths are this and that, but I kind of feel like, there's a certain relativity, to color, and it's, once you become this one thing, it's like, it automatically starts to become something different, right? Once it becomes like this perfect warm, it starts to become, oh, it's slightly cooler now, or it's slightly, like warmer or something like that, right? It's neutral, it's not quite neutral, it starts to move and become, one thing or the other. So there's something that's, it overtakes it, or it, or it misses the mark in some way. So it's kind of like, it's always this moving target, right? It's not so stable. We abstract it as a stable thing, but it's, but I think, again, it's relative, right? It's what is next to it that kind of helps us to, helps us to understand, like, that it's, it's all relational. So, right. So intensity, right? Or saturation, hue, that's the name of the colors, right? Saturation or intensity, how like pure of the color it is, right? We'll use that, it's another word is chroma, but like how pure the color is versus how much it's close to neutral. Okay, value, right? And value would cover all of it, right? Value would cover all of it, and so, kind of generally, we could say, like, violet is darkest, or indigo might be darkest, in value, but certainly we would probably say yellow would be the lightest in terms of most intense. If you have the most intense hues, you want to talk about its value relationship, we'd probably think that yellow is the lightest one. And and then opposite on the color wheel, right, we would see, so yellow up here, and then down here violet, it's opposite, and that would give us this idea, what I mean? We have a also a difference in value. So so here's the color wheel. I'm showing you this amazing color wheel from Tattoo Smart. I think it's very interesting. How do you use it, right? How do you use this thing? Well, so what I've got here is I've got all these layers pulled up, right? The background is locked, which is nice. You can't mess that up. But also put on the monochromatic. Cool. So monochromatic, right? If we were talking about we were looking at some of Russ Abbott's tattoos, and we saw some examples of like a monochromatic color scheme. Well, what we've got here is referred to as a galmet. Don't worry, you don't have to remember that word, but it's just a range, right? It's a range of possible color combinations, right? So how do you use this? Well, I come up here to my arrow key. Let me see if I have it on the right layer. Apologies. All right. So I select the layer, I'm on monochromatic. I just want to see, like, I want to do a monochromatic thing. So I'm gonna check out different options. Okay. Grab my arrow. Now I can move this thing. I can rotate it around the color wheel, right? And I can find different monochromatic relationships. So this is this is very handy. Like, oh, we're gonna do, all blues. All of these colors that we're seeing inside of this color wheel, they're all different. They're all different eternal inks that you can buy, right? So that's what's relational. I think that's cool. You know what I mean? That could be very helpful, especially if you use a lot of eternal.
Mhm.
I use some eternal inks. I use a few different types of inks, but Eternal's always been, very reputable brand in the industry. But anyway, this, even if you don't use that, I think this can still help you as you're sort of thinking about colors and picking them out. So just fun. I mean, you can do this all day, right? But you can find a very sort of related and um, very interesting approach to a monochromatic study, right? If you needed to. And so, this one is like very centered on the red, right? So we have all these different versions of red. Again, there's there we can see all these brand names next to them, all these, the branded sort of names that are that help us sort of associate one with the other. We see a variety of saturations, right, or intensities, and then of course a variety of values. Here's the other terminology that I'll throw at you. So if you take an intense color and you simply add white to it, that's called a tint. T-I-N-T. That's it, you're tinting it, right? So maybe there doesn't seem to be one in this range that has, like, it's a very pure tint. Let me see if we can, maybe we can find one that's like a real tinted. That seems, some of these seem a little closer, right? Like this, think about that pink or something like that. That makes sense, right? Just take as red of a red as you have, and then maybe it's slightly, has a little bit of violet, so it's kind of red violet. Add a little white to it, you have pink. That makes sense. That's a common color name that we would, associate, even though it's, that would be referred to as a tint. You take that same color, right? The same intense color, red, right? Or red violet in this case. You add either black, right? Neutral dark, or the complementary color, right? That's the thought, right? I think when you actually add complementary colors in real life, you get all sorts of variations on stuff. This again is theory, right? We're just theorizing about stuff. Your actual experience with mixing actual pigments together will differ, right? So that's what this chart is nice, especially it's related to, to eternal colors. They've tested it a lot. So there's a lot of like correspondence to these ideas, but if you add black or complement to an intense color, you get what's called a shade. So tint is add white, shade is add black or complement. And so, if I look at this, it's like maybe like, some of these seem like, more like a shade, like almost that one that's labeled ruby red, right? That one seems, if I look at it, it's like, no, that seems like pretty intense, just dark, right? Now, if you were to, again, so the thought is if you add gray, right? So we talk about white, we talk about black. If you add gray to an intense color, you get what's called a tone. And let me see if we can find, these are all, this could probably work. I just look at this mauve color, right? it's like neutral, right? But it's kind of, it feels like it's not just a dark, intense color. It's like
Yeah.
it's more neutralized, sort of. It's a little bit darker than the hue, right?
It's a little more muted.
Exactly. It's muted, and that's like adding the gray. That would be like, that's the idea. Like adding gray to intense color, and you end up with something that it's muted, right? But you've changed the value in some way. And so I think we could probably, I think I would also say probably like, let me see if I can, just because I'm gonna point. Oh, sorry. I think there we go. So, right, we're kind of comparing the mauve color to this nebula color or this cosmos color. That's what I would sort of classify these as tones, right? It's toned in as like either it's it's neutralized, but also maybe a little bit lighter than the intense, right? In this case, it's like so red violet, right? Red violet. And so that's just a little bit more terminology, sort of like, to think about it. Like there's so much complication that you can make. But again, I think if you can really boil it down to hue, saturation, or intensity, right? And then value. If you think about those things, you're gonna get a lot more out of relating colors together. And so that's again sort of a simplified way to think of it. But I think what I'm where I'm trying to get at is this idea of like that, everything is a color, right? Everything is a color. And so even like the most neutralized, again, as we're talking about, it's like it's you can call it pure neutral, but it's going to be something. It's going to be slightly warmer. It's going to be slightly cooler, especially once you start loading things onto it or next to it. We can't help it but to relate it, to add contrast and difference. So let's move along to a different Gaumet scheme, right? So this is, go with complementary. So this is nice, right? It's like it really just sort of shows us. So so again, like depending on where you're at, if you're still on this call with us, or you're still watching the show, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. But also, if you're just approaching color theory for the first time, right? Whether you're using a color wheel, right, or if you have this this Procreate file that you can look at, just the idea of the complementary colors, right? So in this case, we've got yellow to violet, right? They're complements, they're opposite each other on the color wheel. And then of course, we see this whole range of tints, shades, tones of both of these hues, right? And it gives us, again, we can really kind of see, here we can kind of see, like, as far as value. So the value is scaled for us, lightest on the, towards the outside, and then darker as it comes in. And so we look and see, like, which one is the most intense yellow in this group? Somewhere between this lantern and this bright yellow, right? We could see it next to the example of the intense yellow hue on the wheel, right? And it's really light in terms of the value, right? We see it's scaled up here very light. Next, if we go down and observe the violet, like, which one is the most violet example in this in this group? We kind of back out a little bit. It looks like this purple one right here, Cauda purple. Maybe that's I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but right, it's much darker by comparison, right? Scroll back, right? I mean, I think we can see that, but like, if you wanted to sort of invert that and have a dark yellow versus a light violet, you might need to come here and sort of see like, well, this is interesting, right? This color called liver, it's got so much dark in it, right? It's neutralized, right? But it's closer to a, like what you would think of as a dark yellow, right? Where
Almost
maybe,
a
I don't know, you
green.
could, right. Yeah, I think so too. We saw some examples in Russ's tattoos that, we're sort of using this idea of like, there's a certain level of intensity, even though it was a darker shade. Does that make sense? Like it was a darker shade of yellow, but it still had a bit of intensity to it.
Mm.
So again, if you shade something, tint something, you're automatically going to neutralize it slightly. That's going to be the nature of it. However, you know, it can still have a certain level of intensity, have a closer relationship to like to the pure hue. So that's the complementary. Very cool. This term, analogous, is just simply referring to colors that are next to each other, right? That's all that means, right? So it would just be, if I were to move this ever so slightly, and I split the yellow and the green, there I would have like, these are all analogous colors. This is nice because it can show us the different levels of of hues that we could have that are also have different neutrality, right? It's a different value, different like sort of saturation level, that you might not think. So if you're doing, again, a monochromatic or analogous is the technical word for it. This is one that I like a lot, and I think can be very useful, and that is split complementary. If you've ever heard of this before, you know what I mean? I think it's a really interesting way to go, especially, kind of like you're thinking about like, how am I going to make a dynamic range of colors for my particular composition? Well, with a split complementary color scheme, you pick one color that you want to be, let's call it the key color. Let's call it the most important color, right? That would be, let's say in this one, that would be yellow in this case, right? Because remember, we looked at the complementary color scheme earlier. Like what's the complement to yellow is violet, right? Is the purple. Well, it's going to be the split complement will be the two other complements that are analogous to, right, to the opposite. So the key color is yellow. Its complement is violet. So we would have blue violet and red violet. All of those would support and make this yellow much more important looking, right? So that's the split complementary color scheme, is picking a color that you want to be the most important. Let's say, red orange, right? You want the red orange to be the most important. That's the key color. The split complements would be, it looks like, depending on how much red orange you got, so green, blue green, all the way to blue violet, right? We can sort of see all of these colors. They're all analogous. All these blue colors are analogous to each other, right? So as they come together, they come together and they just, they all kind of, their similarity to one another kind of neutralizes them in a certain respect, right? They all relate to each other, and they're all getting along. Well, what doesn't get along, or what doesn't what doesn't match this red orange over here, right? It gives us much more contrast, right? So once you've established a really great like value scheme, positive negative relationships, now you can start to like integrate these ideas of color, where you're like, this is going to be the most important color, this red orange, and all these others, even if you're going very neutral, right? Even if you're going very neutral, like this, rigor mortis, that's almost like the same as the gray, isn't it? You know what I mean? That's almost like the neutral gray. Well, that in concert with all these others, you know, it's gonna give you this very um, a very high contrast. It's gonna really contrast and support this this key color. Hey, we've got Spirit. Hey, Spirit, thanks for coming.
Hey, Spirit, how you doing?
Still connecting to microphone.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? Hey, what's up, guys?
Nice to have you here.
Yeah, I just slept in, so.
It's all right.
Me too.
Me three.
Not alone.
Well, that's a
Well,
lot.
Let's talk about Abbott's.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please.
Oh, I see that you guys are talking about Abbott's color wheel.
Yes.
Sweet.
Yeah, we were talking about color theory, and we're looking at this color wheel because I've got all these, manual ones, these old school ones, they're paper and you can, spin them around. But this one is this one's 21st century, color wheel technology, right? It's cool because you can interact with it. I think that's the part of it that I really, that I'm like really responding to. Is that you can mess around with it, and he's got this last one we'll check out. Southern aspect, or accent rather. Yeah, sorry, Southern accent. That's what he calls it. And so I think what is it we're seeing here, right? We're seeing this idea of a key color, right? It would be in this case like this red to red orange, right? That's this key color that we have selected here. And then all these other colors, they're gonna complement it. They're gonna support this, make this red orange, the colors in the red orange range, they're gonna make them stand out even more, right? And that would be just the way to use this tool, right? Is to select the approach that you like. So whether that's monochromatic, the split complement as we were seeing, or now this Southern accent one is very interesting. You can select, it might be for your own personal work. You're painting wildlife or something, and it's like a robin in a tree or something like that, or a cardinal rather. Think of red, right? Maybe like a some kind of something that has you really want to bring focus and intensity to the color. Again, what's going to be most important is going to be the composition, right? The design of your drawing. Next, the positive and negative relationships. So that's the value, like what's darkest and what's lightest. But finally, after that, I think once all those things are really, well established and working well together, then you start thinking about color. And color, so color can be, I think, again, like so complex and so like overwhelming. But I think if that's a good order of operations for most applications, and of course, like that might be sort of ways to think about how you develop it. I think experimentation is going to be really useful and really important, right? You might start with color, you know what I mean, before you even have a composition in mind, and that might be a really great experiment to sort of develop things. But again, I think if you at the end of the day, what will start to come out of that, and what as far as importance and as far as like structuring things, will really be that relationship, right? The design, right? So the overall composition of what it is you're making. We've talked about that before, as far as like using thumbnail sketches, right, to help you design stuff. And then value. Value is like this most important thing, where you think about how dark, how light things are, and then positive, negative relationships are the same the same sort of thought about that. What's darkest, what's lightest? How do you achieve this readability? So you're making it legible, right? By adding positive, negative relationships, and of course you're encoding it with with culturally significant imagery, right? And that's what makes it readable to the audience, right? They can tell that it's a figure, it's an animal, or it's a bird, or it's a book, or it's a coffee cup or something, whatever you're drawing a picture of, right? Next, right after you've established the composition, the value, color, you can use color theory to your advantage, right? So again, you may reverse that order and have fun making art and just playing around with it. But I think there's a real value to exploring each one of those avenues. And then if you start to build it like a structure, composition would probably come first, and then value, and then the color, right? So are there any other ones? Well, here, I'll turn this off for a second. So looking at the color wheel, how would it go? Again, we'll talk about so this would be example of the primary colors, right? We were talking about this difference in terms of, we talked about additive and subtractive. So subtractive is real life. Subtractive is when you're looking at a painting. Subtractive is when you're looking at a tattoo. Additive is when you're looking at your screen. And so even though additive would be, it's actually using red, green, and blue to produce. There aren't yellow like in your screen. It's funny. It's like your screen isn't actually. I guess that there may be like some high resolution things that I'm just unaware of. But generally speaking, it's always been this case. Like the little the little crystals in your screen that produce all the colors you see. They're really just using red, green, and blue, and they're mixing them together to produce yellow, to produce orange, to produce all the different colors that you're seeing, magenta, right? So that's, your screens are additive. But anyway, so we were talking about that earlier. But let's get back to the simple idea of primary colors. And we can see it here. Yellow, red, and blue. Thought of as the primary colors. Next, secondary colors, right? Secondary colors are made, right, by adding the primaries together. So you take the primary colors, the red, yellow, and the blue, you mix them together in different ways, and you get orange, green, and violet, right? That's the secondary colors. The tertiary colors, you can only do 2 sets of them here at a time. Yeah, here we go. So it's going to be both of these, but it's so the colors in between, right? So between yellow and orange, we've got yellow, orange. These are the technical, just names of the hues in, classic color theory. You go with the primary name first, and then the secondary color name. So we have between yellow and orange, you'd have yellow, orange, right? Between green and blue, you'd have blue, green. Between violet and red, you'd have red, violet. And then you could go to the other one here, right? The other set of tertiary colors. Between yellow and green, you'd have yellow, green, and between blue and violet, you'd have blue, violet, and between red and orange, you'd have red, orange, right? So those are all the names of the the colors on the wheel. And then again, all these other names are just advertising. That's it's just,
Yep.
This is just marketing. It's just capitalism. So you can enjoy, right? I think you can enjoy all those names and stuff, and it'd be impossible to keep up with it. You know what I mean? It's just impossible. You can't keep up with all the names, but there's of course some general ones that that are common. Magenta would be one. What color would magenta be? Right? It'd be like
It'd be a warm color.
I would say so. I would say it's red violet. So it's like a warm cool.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like,
Yes, that
it's
makes
like
sense.
yeah, it's a cool color that's warmer than most of the other cool ones, right? And then
Yeah.
again, it's really interesting too because it's like you can have these really these colors that are very neutralized, but they comparatively when you compare them to something else, they start to become more pronounced as their temperature. So you can have these warm cools and you can have these cool warms, like for instance, yellow green, that one. Like I would say it's pretty warm compared to the other cools, but compared to the other warms, it's much cooler. So it would be like a warm, cool color. That would be how I would think of it. We're same with this, with blue green, right? Teal, it's like that's like the name I would use with it. That's not a that's not a traditional name. Would be like teal or aqua or something like that. And so it's certainly like a you know um, it's cooler than these greens, right? But it's warmer than these other cools, right? So depending on what it's next to, right? It could be cooler, it could be warmer. It's very interesting, right? And so, one of my colleagues, is a fantastic tattooer and, is also a very accomplished artist. He was talking about like this green is, it's red green, like that's awesome, right? And so what is happening with red green, right? We think of it like those are complements, red and green they're completely opposite each other on the color wheel. But in real terms, if you're adding red to green, what's happening? It could be depending on how it works or how much amount you're adding. It could be red is interacting with the blue in the green, and so you're getting like a violet and green mixture, right? So in a sense, you're kind of you're coming closer. You're marching it closer towards a cooler blue color. It's very interesting. It's just interesting how it all works. So anyway, that's Russ Abbott's color wheel. We got a chance to check out some of Russ's work today. It was really enjoyable. We had a chance to talk about color theory a little bit. And I really hope that was informational and also enjoyable. So I just want to promote this product. I think it's pretty cool, and again, I think it's a useful tool for artists. And again, it doesn't matter kind of where you're at with stuff. Having tools you know that are very effective can be really useful to your art making. And so check out Tattoo Smart because there's all kinds of like really great products, especially if you use tablets and Procreate and stuff. Um, but this color wheel I think is pretty fun. So and it sounds like a lot of you actually have it and use it. So I think that's awesome. Yeah. So what's happening with you all? I think we're gonna I want to check in with everybody and we'll probably wrap it up here in just a few minutes. But does anybody have anything they want to add or check anything out that we were looking at or share anything?
Oh, hey. I think that's a really, really awesome tool. It's kind of taken me a few years, I mean, even up until now to really download its uses, because you do have to kind of understand tonal value, and how because I think I spoke to Russ one time and I just kind of asked him, what's the magic about it? He was like, well, it's more about the tonal values. You figure out the tonal values first, and then you're able to just kind of plot the colors in there, as opposed to using the color picker itself, as opposed to using the wheel itself to figure out what colors you're going to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like value does all the work, color gets all the glory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I really, I couldn't agree more. And I think, one of the most effective ways that I've, really learned to sort of to approach value, right, is this thinking about positive negative relationships. I really think that that's been something that's really been helpful. Just in terms of bringing up like legibility, right? Just that you can clearly see the difference, the contrast between things, right? So you can clearly make statements visually speaking, right? And then again, it's like then the color adds another level of contrast and complexity. But but going color by color and being like this one's going to be red and this one's going to be, yellow, blah blah blah. What you're going to end up with is, you'll end up with what you end up with, right? There isn't going to be the design that you had in mind necessarily, or the contrast that you would intend. So again, there's something valuable about experimentation, but as far as bringing the strength of contrast into the work, having like positive negative relationships that are clearly, defining the value, I think that's really gonna be a big key that will help anybody. And then, we talked all about these ideas about color theory, but I think, another good way to start to, to simplify things is thinking about temperature, like warm and cool, right on top of the value. That can be really effective approach. So, yeah, no. Anybody else? Don't want to like leave anybody out. Amber looks like you're doing breathing treatments right now. Like, yeah, keep doing your work. That's important. Well, we hope you feel better soon, Amber.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I am absolutely on the mend. I'm definitely up, not down. They said they should be springing me today or tomorrow.
Well, yeah, you're unstoppable. I can't believe you made it today. So it's really
all I was going to be doing was sitting here looking
it.
at these four walls anyway, going, I wish I was in class. So I don't go anywhere without a sketchbook and a pencil.
Cool. Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
So here I am.
I hope you feel better. Yeah, I hope you feel better.
I do. I feel a lot better.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Yes.
Steven, what say you?
Well, just getting ready for a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, again, I think like it was really great. The sort of the direction you gave us, some direction last week, and sort of prompting us to think about color theory. I this is kind of like the time of year that I talk about it. I think about like, when I'm teaching classes and stuff, like this is just, we're getting in the springtime, start talking about color theory. It's interesting, you know what I mean? It's like, so it's just like, I'm just used to it, And so last week, you really sort of prompted us to start opening up the conversation. And I think it helped to lay a good groundwork to talk about this stuff today. So if anything we were talking about was like, was complicated, there's certainly, I think there's value in sort of checking out last week's episode about contrast, where we spoke about like the importance of positive negative relationships and contrast. And then, I think coupling that with the ideas we're talking about today with color theory, I think I hope that it could be really, informational, valuable, this is, again, like, hopefully you've covered all of this material before, you know what I mean? And that's everybody here and in the audience. But again, it's like you take it to a high level and you start using it in real, in real terms, and become a powerful approach to make your artwork, closer to what you have in mind, right? Closer to realizing the vision, your vision, or the vision for your client, whatever the case may be. So I'm really grateful that everybody could make it today. I know, like, it's a busy time of year for tattoo artists. It's a tax refund season. So, yeah, that's awesome. And that's, it's important, that you got to rake it in now, right? Just in case times ever get lean. You know what I mean? You gotta enjoy the sun while it's shining. I've heard that before. So, yeah. Well, I just want to, again, I want to tell you all, I appreciate you all coming today. So go forth, right? Use color. And really, I mean, and I think it'd be really cool to see, to see some artwork and stuff that y'all are making. Feel free next week, if you want to bring something in, we should check it out. Talk about it. Like, it could be like a way, we talk about some of these ideas, these positive negative relationships, composition, color theory. It doesn't have to be finished, right? It could be a tattoo, could be a painting, whatever you want. And I think that might be a really, accessible and fun way for us to just continue our conversation, and also to have something to look forward to, something to work on. So, yeah, I just, again, I want to thank you all for coming. Let's do some sign-offs, and so we'll wrap it up for the day. And Stephen, we'll start with you.
Sure. And thank you again, James, for your time and efforts today. I appreciate it, man. Always enjoy your class.
Too kind. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Stephen Jesse, tattoo artist in Virginia. You can find me on Instagram at Stephen Jesse and StephenJesseTattoos.com.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming today. And like, it's just, I don't know, it's great to have you here, man. So thank you. Mm-hmm. So see you tonight, right, in class.
Yes, so sir. I'm behind, got some baseball practice to do with my son, but I'm
cool.
Make it in.
Excellent. All right, Kyle, let's have you.
Yeah, my name is Kyle Olson. I tattoo out of Trinity Art Collective in Tucson, Arizona. You can get a hold of me on Instagram at Olson_tattoos, OLSON. And it's always a fun class, James. Like, I love this class. It's super, super, super fun. It's super informative. I love the science aspect of today, plus the art. It's so cool. So thank you, man.
Oh, thank you very much. No, seriously, I think you really brought some just really insightful stuff. We were analyzing tattoos. We were talking about, we're talking about color theory. Your stuff. And so I think that was just a benefit. It's a benefit to, me. You were pointing out things to me that I really appreciated. And then, of course, like, to our wonderful audience, you know what I mean? To everybody watching. So again, just, you're a hell of a tattooer. It's been great working with you. So I just really appreciate you coming. So thank you so much. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Spirit, let's have you, man. Thanks for coming, dude. So glad
yeah, dude. Y'all don't understand, yo. This is my tribe. So I just joined the Reinventing the Tattoo. I joined the Reinventing the Tattoo last week. I haven't gotten a chance to look at any of the classes or whatever, but I definitely am going to go ahead and start work on it pretty soon. And hopefully I'll be in class tonight, vibing with you guys. And I am very much looking forward to it. I just, I really enjoy the fact that, there's just so much to learn in art. It's, we're discovering the secrets of the universe in art. and we'll never figure it all out. And it's just nice to just always, work with people constantly and just, always, exercise and just exercise and, just so that we can always just become better. And, one of my favorite artists, his name is Raphael. He's a living person. He's not the Raphael de Sanzio. But, he's an older gentleman. And, I get a lot of inspiration from him because like he's still drawing, and I looked at him, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm not supposed to have all this stuff figured out by the tender age of 43. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. It's hard to recreate the universe, and and it's easy to get discouraged by artists that are younger than you that seemingly get it. When you're kind of still struggling, but that's just, it's not how it works. It's just little bit by little bit, all the little bit of work you do. It's the magic is in the process. And so, yeah, that's it. I appreciate you guys. You can find, I'm a tattoo artist over at Black Widow Tattoo. You can find me at tattoosbyspirit.com, Instagram Tattoos by Spirit, and TikTok Tattoos by Spirit. Amber, I hope you get well soon, and I'm glad to see you. Yeah, I'm glad to see you up and at 'em.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Amber, please.
Okay, somebody keeps trying to go on my phone, and of course, it's that time that I've told everyone, do not call my phone. So everybody's going to call my phone.
Oh, yeah. Everybody calls now, right?
I am absolutely on the mend. Thank you guys for all your well wishes. They really have helped and lifted my spirits. I just had some wonky respiratory issue that one of the sick kids brought home to me because I don't have school germs anymore. When you work in a school environment, you build up that immunity to all those germs.
That's right.
And I don't work in a school environment anymore, so I don't have that wall of sickiness to keep back their stuff.
You're always sick, so so you don't get sick.
That's kind of what it is. You're always kind of sick, so you never get really sick.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. Again, I'm glad that you had a good time and it was helpful, to your recovery and stuff. And so it's really great to have you. Yeah, it's really great to have you. And I just want to, I want to say real quick, Spirit, thank you so much for what you said. I think it was amazing. And I agree with you totally. And again, it's like, you're also a very accomplished, incredible artist. And so it's an honor to have you here. Really. Seriously. Love your work. Yep.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Amber, please give us your sign off and, tell us where we can find you so we can buy some of your artwork.
Amber Morgaine. You can find me in New Jersey at Luxury Tattoos and on all social media platforms under Amber Morgaine, and here on Monday mornings because I don't miss it for anything.
No, you certainly don't. Inspirational. Yeah, just a real inspiration, and so that it helps me not want to miss it either, right? Because I know the gang is coming, and so it makes the show so much more, right? When you all show up, and so I really appreciate it. And again, you're probably sick of hearing it. Get well soon. It's a command, right? You have to get well soon. But yeah, no, I hope you're feeling better. And
thank you.
Gotta get back to drawing, Amber. Gotta get back to it.
I am. So. I did a little drawing. It was under the. It was a little drug addled, and lack of oxygen. But I did a little drawing. I'll check it out later when I'm seeing more clearly.
Love it.
See what came out of it.
Yeah, no, take advantage, right, while you can. You get that.
Exactly.
So yeah, gotta make the most out of your situation. Work with what you got, So Cool. Well, thanks again, everybody, for coming. I'm James Wisdom. You can find me on Instagram at Tattooing Wisdom, as well as my website, tattooingwisdom.com. You can find me at Hell City on May 20th from 11 to noon. I'm going to be at the reinventing table. We're going to do some fun drawing exercises and meet up. So if you're in Hell City, come see us. Right? Can't wait. And so